If you are tying your own baits, you need to be doing this. If you're not doing this, you're losing money on every single jig you make. Learn this process, it's simple. Okay, so when I say we're gonna turn our powder into a fluid, we're gonna make it fluid-like. So we've got our just aquarium pump with the hose ran to it to our fluid bed. And that line is pumping air into the bottom of our fluid bed and forcing that air through the bottom of that cup. Now on the bottom of that cup, you got a filter right here. It's just a paper filter. That's all that's in the bottom of it. That's just a normal piece of PVC tubing. You can make this or you can buy them already pre-made. All right, so we're gonna reach down and we're gonna turn our fluid bed on. We got the air stopped right here. We're gonna turn the valve just a little bit. So we'll take both hands. We're gonna turn it just until we start seeing some bubbles come up in it. I call that volcanoing. It's volcanoing in two different spots and it'll keep doing that. Now, the more air you pump to it, the more and faster it's gonna come up. So it's still a powder, but it's got like a liquid form to it if you watch it move around, because we're pumping air to it. So that's how our fluid bed works. And if we turn the air completely back off, you don't have that fluid anymore, and it'll sit there and settle and compact into the bottom and get kind of hard. You can achieve the same thing a different way. Okay, so now we've got a cup, and this is Junebug. This is Junebug color, and we're going to make it. You can see right now it's just a powder, and it's going to stay a powder. But if you don't want to use the fluid bed, you don't have to, but you just got to keep this mixed up. Every 2 or 3 jig heads, you're going to want to mix that up. And we can put the lid on it, and you can do it this way also. You can put the lid back on, and you can shake it up. And that's going to get some air underneath the bottom of that powder and make it pretty fluid-like. Just like I said, with every 2 or 3 jig heads, you're going to want to take something and you're going to want to stir it back up, or you're going to want to put the lid on it and shake it back up. Just as long as you keep it broke up and loose, don't let it settle. Just keep it loose. That's all you're doing. You're going to achieve almost the same thing this does, but you can do it like this. You don't have to have the fluid bed, but the fluid bed definitely helps, especially if you're going to be painting lots of jig heads at one time. Okay, so we'll go over some of the tools that you're going to need to start painting. And these are small investments on some of this that's going to last you a real long time. I've got white in this container, and that is the same white I've been using for 3 years. 3 years, that's how long this paint lasts. When you get it from Jason, you're going to get it in 3-ounce containers, not the 2-ounce like you get at the other box stores. It goes a long way. Hemostats. Hemostats make this so much easier for me. And you'll hear a lot of people will say, well, you just use heat shrink tubing. I don't want to add that step. I don't want to add that step. And if I take my hemostats and I grab a hold of it right there by the eye and paint, that helps keep my paint out of the eye. Makes it a little bit easier to clean. Some's still going to get in there. You'll have to clean a little bit of it out, but it's so much better than hooking it back, putting it back here and dipping it, and then knowing every single jig head, you've got to poke the paint out. Every single one. You should do it anyway before you let them go, especially if you're selling. If you're selling these, by all means, make sure the eye's cleaned out. There's as many color powder paints as there are styles of jig heads. Some paint easier, some paint better. Your paint, they've all got a little bit of a personality to them. White's a tough one, red's a tough one, and you just got to experiment with them. To start with the white base coat and then put whatever else you want on top of it. And if it's still hot and you put it in the white base coat, then dip it back in whatever color you want, and that's going to make that color stand out so much better. The white base coat, I can't stress enough, makes your colors pop. Makes them the way you're wanting them to look. So if you just heat your jig head up and you dip it in this chartreuse, let's do 2 of them for a comparison. We'll turn our propane torch back on. And these are 16th ounce, just plain Jane 16th ounce round ball jig heads. Just a plain 16th ounce round ball jig head. When I put mine on my hemostats, I kind of want them angled just a little bit. So we're going to stir up this green, this chartreuse, and we're going to paint it. And there's going to be a little bit of a difference. I think you'll agree with me. Doing the white base coat, to me, just makes all the difference in the world. We're going to heat it up. And we're going to dip it in our chartreuse. And you got a good chartreuse color, no doubt. I mean, it's a good chartreuse. It's a good chartreuse. We'll let it cool down here. 16th ounce round ball jig head with the number 4 plain Jane sickle hook right there on it. It coming over. Some paints are going to do that and some won't. There's no way to know what causes that. It's just kind of the way it happens. So we're going to heat it up. We're going to dip it in the white. We're going to come back over and we're going to dip it in the chartreuse. And I don't know how good the camera is going to pick it up, but we got a really good, it kind of looks the same, but the one in the hemostats, I think has definitely got a deeper green color, a deeper chartreuse than the one on the left. I just really think that's the way the camera is just going to settle in on it. But it does make a difference. And if you're going to do 3 colors, make white one of them, and then baby bass green and maybe some red, something like that. But I always start out with white as a base coat, or you can start out with chartreuse. You want to start out with a lighter color as your base coat. And I think that'll help you a lot. That'll go a long way when it comes to making your colors pop and stand out. It's an easy process. Don't be afraid of it. It's trial and error. The more you do it, the better you're going to get. You know, and I've said it 100 times, think outside the box. There's different ways to heat them up. There's different ways to dip them. There's different ways to cure them. Toaster ovens, they're extremely inconsistent. Don't trust your toaster oven until you put an oven thermometer in there. They are all totally different. And you know, if your paint says 325 at 15 minutes, you put your toaster oven on 325, you might actually be closer to 400 or maybe a little bit over 400. You get that drip. When you get that drip on that jig head, sand that drip just a little bit. Make sure that's the paint dripping and not the lead. Sometimes you will melt the lead on your jig head just from being in the oven. Go smaller increments. Go get your oven to where you know it's 325, where the actual setting might be 275. Run them for 10 minutes. Pull them out, check them, put them back in, run them for 10 more minutes. You still done the same thing. You cured it for 20 minutes at 325. Break it up a little bit, let it heat up, cool down, heat it back up again. It's a pretty fast process. Resin coats, clear coats, there's different ways to do it where you can just totally bypass the oven. There are ways to bypass the oven. And there's a lot of people right now saying, oh my gosh, you cannot do it like that. Yes, you can. You can do it like that. Bypass the oven, UV resins, clear coats, or simply if you're using a heat gun, when you get it cured, you're done down to your last coat, put it back over the heat gun for a few seconds, heat it back up, and then use them. Just use them. If you're doing them for yourself, use them. You can bypass the oven process. You can bypass the propane torch with the heat gun, a lighter, a candle, whatever it takes just to get that lid warm enough to put it in that paint. But I'll put the link to everything I use down in the bottom, and I hope this video helps. Maybe we might do more. Just depends. Let me know on what you want to see, and please like, share, and subscribe. I can't stress that enough. That helps my channel, and it also lets me know that y'all are wanting to see my content. So, and it lets YouTube know you're wanting to watch my content. We can go in so in depth with this. Don't make it hard. It's not that hard.